young in the Restless Spoilers Claire sat alone at a corner table in a dimly lit cafe, her eyes distant and filled with sorrow. In a voice trembling with both anger and despair, Summer finally interjected, "But Claire, what about my life? What about the happiness I have right now with Kyle and Harrison? I mean, even if there's betrayal lurking somewhere, right now I feel something genuine." She paused, swallowing hard, her eyes flashing with a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I'm tired of all this drama and I don't need someone lecturing me about it. Just leave me alone and let me live my happiness." The sudden harshness in Summer's tone stunned Claire, and for a moment, the warmth of their long-standing friendship was replaced by the chill of confrontation. "You think that happiness is all about the present?" Claire pressed, her voice low and pained. "I know you have your moments, but how can you be so sure that the same promises won't shatter tomorrow? I've been burned by Kyle, he betrayed me, shattered the trust one once held dear. And I'm convinced that it's only a matter of time before he does the same to you." Summer's eyes flashed with anger. "You don't get to talk about my life, Claire. I know what I'm doing. I'm choosing to focus on the now. I'm happy with Kyle and Harrison, at least for the moment, that's enough. I don't need to be dragged into your regrets or be reminded of the past. So why don't you just get out of my life and let me enjoy what I have without your constant doom and gloom?" Their conversation, already charged with emotion, reached a crescendo. For a long moment, the two women sat in silence, the air between them heavy with unspoken words and mutual hurt. Finally, Summer stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done listening to this. I need to live my life the way I see fit," she declared, her tone leaving no room for compromise. With that, Summer turned on her heel and left the cafe, leaving Claire alone with her thoughts and the ghosts of her painful memories. As the door closed behind Summer, Claire felt a mix of regret and resignation. She knew that deep down, her words had come from a place of genuine sorrow and fear of further betrayal. Yet, in that moment, the chasm between her and Summer seemed too vast to bridge. In the quiet aftermath of the confrontation, Claire realized that every choice carried its own set of consequences, and sometimes the cost of honesty was the pain of isolation. The night slowly deepened, and as Claire gathered her things to leave, her mind wandered to another part of her life, a life that was now taking shape in a way she never expected. Her heart had found solace in the unexpected arms of Holden, a man who, unlike the others, had shown her unwavering support. With his steady presence and sincere promises, Holden had gradually mended the fractures in her battered heart. He had offered her a glimpse of hope, a promise of protection that extended far beyond the confines of fragile love. Later that evening, in a quiet corner of his apartment, Holden sat with Claire as they reviewed the events of the day. "I promise you, Claire," he said softly, reaching out to take her hand, "I will protect your happiness by any means necessary. No matter what storms come our way, I'll be here with you. You deserve a love that doesn't leave you empty and shattered, and I intend to be that for you." His words were a balm to Claire's aching soul, a reaffirmation that even amidst the chaos of betrayal and unfulfilled promises, there was a chance for renewal. Holden's commitment was not a simple promise, it was a vow born of deep conviction and understanding. He had witnessed too many hearts broken by the whims of unreliable lovers like Kyle. His own experiences had taught him that genuine love required both courage and sacrifice, and he was prepared to shoulder every burden if it meant Claire's future was free from the scars of the past. In the days that followed, Claire began to embrace a newfound strength. She slowly distanced herself from the painful memories of Kyle's betrayals and the harsh words exchanged with Summer. Instead, she focused on building a life with Holden, a life filled with trust, mutual respect, and a shared vision of a future unmarred by the shadows of treachery. Together, they forged a sanctuary in a world that often seemed intent on proving that loyalty was a foolish notion, a promise too fragile to keep. Meanwhile, Summer, for all her defiance, was left to navigate her own turbulent emotions. The confrontation with Claire had stirred a hidden vulnerability that she had long tried to suppress. While she clung to the immediate joys brought by Kyle and Harrison, deep within her lay the lingering doubt that the fleeting nature of hope might one day give way to heartache. Yet, in that moment, she chose to ignore the ominous whispers of caution and live in the transient euphoria of the present. As time moved on, the lives of these women continued to intertwine with that of a complex network of relationships and loyalties. Summer's choices led her into new adventures and unexpected alliances, while Claire's journey with Holden blossomed into a tale of redemption and resilience. Every laugh, every tear, and every silent promise formed the intricate mosaic of their lives, a tapestry woven with the threads of love, betrayal, hope, and ultimately the quest for lasting happiness. In the grand scheme of things, both Claire and Summer discovered that life was not about clinging to old grievances or holding on to what had once been. Instead, it was about embracing the uncertain future with open hearts, even if that meant facing the possibility of more pain along the way. For Claire, that future was illuminated by the unwavering light of Holden's devotion, a beacon in the darkness of past disappointments. For Summer, it was the exhilarating rush of living in the moment, the defiant choice to savor happiness while it lasted. Thus, as the city lights of Genoa shimmered in the distance, and the night slowly gave way to the promise of a new dawn, both women returned to their respective paths. Their conversation, fraught with harsh truths and emotional vulnerability, had become a turning point. It was a reminder that even when love seems to fail and loyalty appears to be nothing more than a naive ideal, each person has the power to redefine their own destiny. And as the memories of that turbulent evening faded into the background, Claire and Summer carried forward the lessons learned, forever changed by the relentless pursuit of happiness and the enduring hope that, somewhere along the way, true love could be found. This narrative intertwines the bitter memories of past betrayals with the promise of new beginnings, as Claire and Summer each navigate the complexities of love and loyalty. While Claire seeks solace and protection in the arms of Holden, determined to build a future free from deceit, Summer clings to the transient happiness of her current relationships, even as deep down, the fear of inevitable betrayal lingers. The conversation between them, painful yet cathartic, serves as a mirror reflecting the many facets of love, its beauty, its dangers, and its unyielding capacity to change the course of one's life. Summer sat by the window in her upscale apartment, the muted light of dusk filtering through sheer curtains as she stared into the distance. Her mind was a tumult of regret and simmering anger, a complex brew of emotions that had grown more bitter with each passing day. For so long, Summer had justified her choices, insisting that the present was all that mattered. Yet, now, with the echoes of her past mistakes ringing louder than ever, she was forced to confront a painful truth. She had wronged Claire. Summer's thoughts drifted back to the days when she had unknowingly been the catalyst for Claire's misery. There was a time when she had spoken words that cut deep, words that had not only wounded Claire but had also set in motion a chain of events that robbed her of happiness. "I was wrong," Summer whispered into the silence, her voice trembling with remorse. "I allowed my own anger and selfish desires to cloud my judgment, and in doing so, I destroyed a chance at happiness for someone I once cared about." The memory was raw and unyielding. Claire, with her gentle heart and hopeful eyes, had been left to grapple with the consequences of betrayal and loss. Summer had been both the instrument and the echo of that pain, a bitter reminder of how careless words and fleeting judgments could inflict lasting damage. Now, as Summer reflected on her own life, the sting of regret mixed with the bitterness of her anger. It was an anger that burned with the intensity of 1,000 unspoken apologies, a fury that was not quite enough to redeem the past but was all she had left to hold onto. Yet, in the tangled web of their shared history, the wounds between Claire and Summer were not destined to heal easily. Instead, they were fated to endure as a lingering feud, one that cast a long, dark shadow over both of their lives. Their mutual enmity had become a self-perpetuating cycle of bitterness where every word exchanged and every slight remembered deepened the divide between them. Neither woman was willing to let go of the past, and in doing so, they had sealed their fates to a lifetime of conflict. The acrimony between them was as relentless as it was irreversible, a permanent scar on the fabric of their intertwined destinies. Meanwhile, the reverberations of this bitter feud extended far beyond the lives of Claire and Summer. Victor, the patriarch who had long tried to maintain order amidst the chaos of familial strife, was exhausted. His heart ached with the weight of responsibility as he watched his grandchildren, Claire and Summer, succumb to an ever-deepening hatred. The once close bond that had united them was now splintered by years of miscommunication, shifting allegiances, and hurtful betrayals. For Victor, this was a painful irony. The same love he had once nurtured was now being eroded by the very choices he had made. Victor had always believed in the possibility of reconciliation, but as the cycle of anger and resentment grew, he began to realize that he might have inadvertently been the spark that ignited the feud. Over the years, his attempts to mediate and even favor one over the other had only served to intensify their rivalry. "How did we come to this?" Victor would often ask himself, his voice heavy with sorrow and disbelief. In moments of reflection, he recognized that his wavering support, sometimes favoring Claire, at other times siding with Summer, had contributed to the confusion and animosity that now defined their relationship. His efforts to remain neutral, though well-intentioned, were seen as weakness by one and betrayal by the other. On one particularly cold evening, Victor found himself alone in his study, surrounded by mementos of happier times. A faded photograph of a family picnic, a once-cherished birthday card now creased with age. His thoughts turned to the unending conflict that plagued his family. "I'm tired," he murmured, the exhaustion in his voice palpable. "I just want them to be happy. But instead, every decision I make seems to fan the flames of this hatred." The realization cut him deeply. His own indecision, his inconsistent support, had sown the seeds of division that now threatened to destroy the legacy of love he had worked so hard to build. In his heart, Victor knew that both Claire and Summer were capable of great kindness and strength, qualities that had once brought them together as family. But now, those same qualities were obscured by mistrust and unhealed wounds. His attempts to patch the fractures were met with resistance, as each new gesture of support was twisted into evidence of favoritism. The more he tried to fix things, the further apart they seemed to drift. It was as if the very act of choosing sides was a betrayal in itself, leaving both women to carry the heavy burden of resentment. For Claire, the pain of the past was inextricably linked with her struggle for happiness. Despite everything, she had found solace and hope in the unwavering protection offered by Holden, a man whose devotion promised a reprieve from the constant storm of conflict. With Holden by her side, Claire dared to imagine a life where trust and loyalty were not just hollow words but pillars upon which a new future could be built. Holden's promise was simple yet profound. He would defend her happiness at any cost, a promise that resonated with every beat of her heart. In his embrace, Claire sought refuge from the bitterness that had once defined her existence, a sanctuary where the wounds inflicted by betrayal might one day heal. Summer, on the other hand, clung to her present joys with a fierceness born of defiance. Though she recognized, deep down, that she had made mistakes that hurt those she once cared about, she was determined to live in the moment. Her relationships with Kyle and Harrison, fraught with their own complexities, were her way of asserting control over a life that had otherwise felt chaotic and unmanageable. "I can't change the past," Summer would tell herself, her voice resolute. "All I have is the present, and I will make sure it's mine." Even as the weight of guilt pressed down upon her, she refused to let it dictate the terms of her happiness. Yet, the memory of her actions, of the cruel words that had set Claire on a path of sorrow, lingered like an unhealed scar, a constant reminder that some wounds never fully close. As the days turned into nights, the invisible lines of conflict remained etched in the lives of those caught in their wake. Claire and Summer, each battling the demons of their past and the bitterness of their current choices, seemed destined to remain at odds. Their feud had become a fixture in their lives, a bitter inheritance that neither time nor tenderness could erase. And in the midst of the strife, Victor's weary heart ached for the family he had once known, a family united not by the divisions of anger and regret, but by the love that had once held them together. In one final, poignant confrontation, Victor gathered both Claire and Summer in the old parlor of the family estate, a room filled with relics of a more hopeful era. His voice, heavy with sorrow and longing, filled the silence. "I know you both believe that your paths are the only way to find happiness," he began, his eyes pleading for understanding. "But every time we choose anger over love, every time we let the past dictate our future, we lose a part of ourselves. I have tried to help, sometimes choosing one of you, sometimes the other, but in doing so, I have only made our rift deeper. We must find a way to move beyond this cycle of resentment, or else we will all be lost." The words hung in the air, a somber reminder of the cost of division. Yet, even as Victor's heartfelt plea echoed through the room, the chasm between Claire and Summer remained. Each woman, entrenched in her own beliefs and regrets, saw only the scars of betrayal in the other's eyes. The promise of reconciliation seemed as distant as a fading dream, impossible to grasp in the harsh light of reality. In the aftermath of that fateful evening, Claire and Summer retreated into their separate worlds, each carrying the heavy burden of their choices. Claire, fortified by Holden's steadfast devotion, continued her quest to build a future free from the shadows of her past. Her heart, though battered, still held on to the hope that true happiness could be reclaimed. Summer, on the other hand, immersed herself in the fleeting pleasures of the present, determined to ignore the lingering doubts that haunted her. But deep down, the knowledge of her own missteps, of how she had unwittingly contributed to Claire's unhappiness, remained a constant companion, a silent verdict on the cost of her choices. And so, the bitter feud between Claire and Summer endured, a testament to the enduring power of regret, anger, and the inescapable consequences of choices made in the heat of the moment. Victor, caught in the crossfire of familial strife, could only watch with a heavy heart as the bonds he had once cherished splintered further with each passing day. His life had become a series of compromises, of moments when his support for one was seen as a betrayal by the other, a relentless cycle of trying and failing to bridge a gap that had grown too wide to mend. In this intricate dance of emotions, where hope clashed with despair and love was overshadowed by lingering enmity, the characters found themselves trapped in a narrative of their own making. Their lives, entwined in a tapestry of past hurts and present anger, served as a stark reminder that some conflicts, once ignited, are difficult, if not impossible, to extinguish. As each day passed, the shadows of the past loomed large over their present, ensuring that the bitter feud would forever remain a part of who they were. And thus, in a world where trust had been shattered and forgiveness seemed like a distant myth, Claire, Summer, and Victor continued on their separate paths, bound together by blood and regret, yet divided by the choices that had defined their lives. The hope for reconciliation remained fragile and elusive, a tender possibility that might one day be nurtured. But for now, the bitter legacy of their past was all they had to hold on to. This narrative weaves together Summer's reflective remorse and anger over her role in causing Claire's unhappiness, the enduring feud between the two women, and Victor's anguished struggle as he grapples with the fallout of his own inconsistent support. In a family torn apart by betrayal and regret, the painful truths of the past cast long shadows over the present, leaving each character to confront the consequences of choices that can never truly be undone.